Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for coming. Just a little bit of a history on what we've been doing so far. Mike Norris and myself are he's sitting in my name tag, so don't confuse that.
Yes.
But anyway, we've been going around the state, different regions, with meetings just like this. This is our 6th one, and our final one. We just, about half hour ago, buzzed in from Long Island, so we've been going from Long Island to Buffalo to Utica to the North Country to the Capital District and wrapping up here in Monroe County. During the last session, members of our conference talked to us about how in their districts, BOCES, unions, manufacturing groups, we're all talking, colleges, talking about the gap of skilled, trained individuals that could fulfill jobs that are opened, that just they don't have the skilled labor to do that. We've found out throughout our visits that, not everyone in high school wants to go to college. And we have to have, what we're finding out is we're trying to get a pathway for our students who really want trades and skills and still have a degree, a high school degree, and to go on to whatever they want to do. If they still want to go to college, that's fine. And if they want to go into the trades, that's another avenue for them. And so we're here tonight, and I'm sure some of the things that you're going to tell us are the same that Mike and I have heard over these 5 other visits. But it's important that we hear it from a regional point of view, so that we could say this is a statewide problem. And actually, every meeting we've actually had 1 or 2 different things that the other meetings didn't bring up. So it's interesting that we're finding some similarities, but also different opinions on things. So it's important that we do that. So what we're going to do is, I don't know from our list how many people want to talk tonight, whether everyone wants to speak tonight. We have an attendance list, so Mike will call the names. If you're not ready to speak or don't want to speak, you're just here to listen, that's fine. What we're trying to do is keep it as brief as possible, to the point. My members and I are going to try not to give any political statements. We're here to listen to you. Obviously, after you get done speaking, we may have some questions, but we're here to hear what your opinion is on the work, the School to Work program that we're trying to put forward. So, and I know last session when we were all talking about this, our minority leader Brian Kolb asked Mike and I to co-host this. And so that's what we're doing tonight in wrapping it up. After we get done with this, there's going to be a report made, an actual report with solutions that we're going to give to members of the Senate, members to the Assembly, and to the Executive, and to State Ed. We are not going to put a report out and put it on a shelf someplace. We're going to push this report and try to find some common grounds across the state of New York to help us and help you hire skilled labor, help our students who may not be college bound, or they could be college bound too. What's wrong with that? They have a skill and they go to college. I mean, it's a great, some of what we've heard in other avenues is that one of the individuals that talked went to trade school, then went to school, and now he's ready to open up his own business. And so it doesn't matter whether you're just going one avenue or another. Maybe you'd want to do two, but I don't think I think the career path could be both. And so what we're going to try to do today is, I know Jimmy, your son's playing basketball? Or, huh? Baseball today? Yeah, well, he's got hitting practice. Oh, okay. So you could be number one on the hit parade.
Yes.
And baseball in Wayne County? Yes. Wow.
We'll let him speak.
So before we start that, I'd like to have every member introduce himself, starting with me. I'm in the 117th district, which is the North Country, which is St. Lawrence County, Lewis County, Jefferson County, and parts of Oneida County. And so, Mike, do you want to start it off?
Sure. My name is Mike Norris. I'm the Assembly member from the 144th District, which is comprising parts of Erie, Niagara, and Orleans County. So I'm making my way back west today, which worked out very nice. And I'll be home tonight. We've been very pleased to co-chair this task force together, Ken and I. We'll have some questions throughout the program for the speakers. And I'll hold that for later on, because Jim, I know we want to get to you and make sure you get to your son's game or to practice, okay? And I'll turn over to my colleague, Peter Lawrence, for his introduction.
Yes, good evening. Thank you for everyone for coming. Really appreciate it. Peter Lawrence, I'm from the 134th District. Out west, it's Greece, Ogden, and Parma. Happy everybody's here. Before we get started, I'd like to thank MCC and Clayton for their hospitality tonight, giving us this room and making us feel comfortable. So thank you. Steve?
Thanks, Pete. I'm Steve Hawley. I represent the 139th Assembly District. I affectionately refer to that as that romantic interlude between Rochester and Buffalo. GCC, some good friends of mine are here tonight to talk about what we're going to be listening to. I represent all of Genesee County. Almost all of Orleans County, except for the town of Shelby. My good friend Mike Norris represents that town, and all of the west side of Monroe County, from Hamlin, Clarkson, Sweden, and Riga. So it's a pleasure to be here. Look forward to hearing from you. Marge?
Good evening. I'm Marge Burns. I represent the 133rd District in Monroe County. It's Wheatland, Rush, Mendon, and Pittsford, all of Livingston County, and part of northern Steuben. You got it.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Mankdalo. I represent the 130th District. That's all of Wayne County, Happacuga County, basically both sides of the city of Auburn and everything up to the lake, and as well as the northwest corner of Oswego County, 3 towns there. I want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to come out this evening, and we look forward to hearing from you and learning from some of your thoughts and comments and processes. And as we meet with so many people, we hear a lot, and we're here to help you succeed in New York State.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Assemblyman Mark Johns. I have the honor and privilege of representing 135th District, which is the east side of Monroe County. It's Webster, Penfield, Perrington, Fairport, and East Rochester. So if you live in that area, you're one of my 138,000 bosses. And the big boss stayed home tonight. Normally she's out here with me. But Clay, thank you so much for allowing us to use MCC for this evening's event. Among the different things I do, I play some basketball, and I'm terrible. I think I'm better than Robach, but he says I'm worse. The most important thing is I get out there and I'm playing with a lot of young people. And just as a caveat, I was playing ball about a month ago. One young guy went to college, got a ton of debt. He came out of college, 4 years, I forgot what his degree was, had no real discernible job skill. He joined and got in the apprentice program with the local electrical workers union. Now he's making good money, paying off his college debt, wife, 2 kids, having a great life. And I'm not knocking the idea that when people go on to college, But the reality is, if you go to college outside of math, science, technology, you're going to be stuck with a lot of student debt. Even if you get a free college, you're still paying for room and board. We get a job skill, middle skill program like we're trying to promote here in New York State. These jobs will stay here in New York State. Otherwise, they're going to leave this state, they're going to go to Carolina or somewhere else, or worse yet, they're going to go to another country. And what we're trying to do tonight is cobble together some ideas. We're all going to take notes, bring them back to Albany in January. And in a bipartisan effort, let's see what we can do to keep good paying jobs here in New York State. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Mark. I'm going to play traffic cop, I guess. So, Jimmy, we'll let you start with your comments regarding the task force, and we appreciate you being here this evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Assembly members. My name's Jim Caternolo. I'm the current business agent for the Plumbers and Steam Fitters Union in Local 13, Rochester, New York here. And, 36 years ago, I graduated from Gates Chi High School. I went off to college to be an industrial arts teacher. 6 months into going to college, my shop teacher called and said, hey, you might want to change your major. I says, well, why would I do that? He says, because I just got laid off. He says, they're laying off shop teachers across the nation. He says, the Silicon Valley's involved now, and they're calling all the shots. He says, what's going on is they're bringing in computers into the classrooms, and now I have to go back to school to recertify to be a teacher because I have no more shop classes to teach. So I ended up turning around and saying, what am I going to do now? So now I go to the Pipe Fitters Union. I went to the Pipe Fitters Union, and I got a free education. 5 years of apprenticeship program. They paid completely for the whole thing. Our members pay for it. I heard Ken say earlier that this is a statewide problem, and I agree with that 100%, but it's also a countrywide problem. This is across the nation. And the problem is that these kids that are in school today, I'm so tired of hearing that they're lazy, they don't want to do anything. I don't agree with that. I agree, I disagree with it completely. My focus is that these kids are uninformed. And they're misguided, and they have no idea that these jobs even exist because they're not being exposed to it in school in 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade like we were, okay? And I believe that this money, if we were to divert this money to the schools in order to get these programs back in to the general high schools and junior high schools, you'll see in 10 years, because it's been a 36-year burn now, where there's been no shop classes taught in the general schools, and a lot of kids don't want to go to BOCES or WMOCO classes because they want to stay in school to have a high school experience, okay? So a lot of them won't go. And if they were to divert the money back into the schools and let them do shop classes there, the kids that want to go to WMOCO can go to WMOCO, but the other ones can go to these jobs, or to these classes. And I believe that when a kid is taught something, he might learn. But when he's shown something, he'll never forget it, okay? And these shop classes teach kids that, wow, this is an option for me. This is something that I like. This is something I want to do. And they go to college, like you guys said, and they bring up $100,000 in debt. Next thing you know, they can't even find a job in the field that they're in. They can come into a union, get a job, earn while they learn. We pay for it. And then after 5 years, they're making $80,000 a year, plus pension, health care, annuity, and a Roth IRA. It's a good deal. So my focus is, and I've been saying this for 36 years, guys, so I'm hoping that I'm making sense here to you, because I've been saying it forever. I've been on many forums in the past, talked about this. I sat right here on a forum and talked about it not too long ago. And my focus is, it's not only a state problem, but it's a federal problem. The state and federal education department needs to get on this, and they need to get on it right away. The schools need to be teaching the skilled trades. If they start teaching skilled trades in school, the kids are going to know this is an option for me. They're going to have an avenue to go. Not all kids will go to college. You're absolutely right. And that's the end of my report.
That away, Jimmy.
Ken?
Just a question for you. We've heard that same story that you told in different parts of the state. And the reason why I say it's a state problem, I can't do anything federally, but.
I understand that.
And it's hard enough doing it by state, through state ed. But one of the problems that we're hearing about what you're talking about, shop class in schools, is to actually get individuals from the trades to teach because of the income that they're making out in the field doing working compared to what a teacher makes. And so that's something that has got to be addressed so that we could get teachers that would want to teach the trades.
Well, we had teachers back 36 years ago that taught it, and I don't see why we can't have teachers teaching it now that maybe are not in the trade, but I mean, my shop teacher was an incredible teacher and taught us things. I mean, we did sheet metal, we did plumbing, we did HVAC, we did carpentry, power technology, printing, plastics, manufacturing. If this was taught in the schools now, I think this problem will go away.
Yeah, I
It
agree.
needs to go away, and that's the way it's going to go away. Go back to our ways that we used to do it. I believe that will work. And then you'll see that this manpower shortage in this nation will start decreasing. But we need to get on it right away.
Any other questions from my colleagues? Great. Jim, thank you very much for being
Thank
here.
you.
Thanks,
I
Jim.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in.
And what we're going to do is I'm going to read through the names, how they are on the list. And if someone has to leave early, just please check with our staff at the table, and they'll give us a name so we can make sure we get you on board. If you wish not to speak when I read your name, that's fine. We'll just move on to the next person. So we have Richard Turner, Workforce Development Manager, Monroe County Planning and Development. Thank you, Mr. Turner, for being here this evening.
Thank you for having me. Just want to touch on a couple of points. I know a lot of people are going to touch on some of the same points, but wanted to thank everyone for having me today. And I've been Workforce Development Manager for the county for about 3.5 years, and I've met with hundreds of businesses, and we keep hearing the same thing time and time and again. I have jobs, I just can't find people to fill them, and I'm sure you've heard that as well. But, and I say this, business expansion, aging workforce, and outdated approach have contributed to this middle skills gap. Workforce development for Monroe County has been very proactive. We've been building a pipeline, working with partners in education, private and public industry, and we're offering training programs and connecting job seekers. So I would encourage more of a statewide approach to do the same. I'm just going to go over a couple of the programs that we do in a real brief manner and what some of the partnerships that we have covered. We've done a lot of career exploration events with local businesses and higher education. We recently partnered with Unicon to do a apprenticeship application day recruiting on the road. I know some of the people that were in the room that day on Tuesday were here tonight. We had dozens of people coming in, finding out great careers in the apprenticeship fields and the trades locally. We need more events like that, and we need to advertise them better throughout our community. We've also worked very well with Monroe 1 and Monroe 2 BOCES. I know I have a BOCES colleague in the room today. One of the programs that we have done that we're trying to expand to another school district this summer is called the Summer Advanced Manufacturing Experience, or SAME. This program gives an opportunity for incoming 9th and 10th graders to explore advanced manufacturing. They're getting hands-on experience with some of the most up-to-date equipment. They're touring companies. I know Optimax is in the room. They're one of the companies they tour. And they're earning 3 credits at MCC in advanced manufacturing and precision machining. And they're also gaining middle skills competencies. And that's a great program. We have limited to about 24 students a year or so that can take it. We're looking to expand it this year coming up to another couple of school districts because it is a Monroe County funded program, and we're willing to advance it again. Bless you.
Thank you.
Speaking of MCC, we do partner with MCC's Economic and Workforce Development Center on our Ladders Up program. And if you're unfamiliar with Ladders Up is a one-of-a-kind training program that MCC and Monroe County collaborate on that offers customized curriculum based on industry needs. One of the industries that we have used this a lot on is healthcare, and the other one is advanced manufacturing. To date, we have helped dozens of companies, especially dozens in manufacturing, train and upskill up to over 800 employees throughout Monroe County in just about 2 years of this program. These are programs that are needed. This is a program that is funded by the Industrial Development Corporation for Monroe County, and it works. The companies are building, they're thriving, they're getting more people middle and upper skills. One of the other programs that we like to show off and really tout is our recruiting on the road. And that's why we wanted to partner with the unions on that for the apprenticeship application day. So recruiting on the road takes your traditional job fairs that are usually set in one location, and we're going all throughout the community. We usually have the trades, we usually have manufacturing, healthcare, any in-demand industry. We're partnering with people who are in job readiness and work preparedness programs so that they can bring their clients to this so they can match them up with these in-demand fields. These are really good programs. I hope you take some of these into consideration. I will email my testimony over to you as well. But I do support the Learning to Work program, the legislation. I think that's really a great step ahead as well. Anything that you can need on my end, I'll definitely be willing to help with. Thank you.
Any questions? Any questions? Thank you very much for your
Thanks,
testimony.
Rich.
Thank
Good
you.
job,
Appreciate
Rich.
it very much. Our next speaker, Valley Educational Partnership.
I'm going to pass as well.
Okay,
Well, you're doing a good job.
well. Jim Van Cowenberg, Workforce Development Coordinator, Oxman Systems. Optimex Systems.
I'll talk, I can talk.
Please.
So Optimex is a manufacturing company in Ontario, New York. We manufacture precision optics that go into pretty much everything. And we're very active in recruiting and workforce development. We have a program that we run with high schools where we go into a number of high schools, present an opportunity to students to find their way into a 6-week paid internship that would happen right after they graduated from high school. So when you've got these students that aren't decided on what they want to do in college and things like that, this is a good opportunity that we present to them. Last year we had 10 students that made it through the orientation process and were given 6-week paid internships. Out of that group, 7 were graduating seniors, 3 were students at BOCES that are seniors at BOCES this year. Out of the 7 graduating seniors, we hired 5 of them full-time. So we don't have a big problem hiring people. We hire a lot of people. In the last year, in the last 12 months, we've hired 96 people. And full-time positions with about a 75% retention rate. So our company is growing, and we're out there plowing the field to, stocking the pond is what I've heard. Everybody wants to fish, nobody wants to stock the pond. We're out there stocking the pond. So we're making these opportunities available. When the students get into our workplace, we pay 100% tuition for them. We have a tuition assistance program where they're able to continue their education if they choose to. We also have a registered apprenticeship in precision optics manufacturing. So there's a lot of pathways there. One of the things that we have challenges with is those 17-year-olds that may not be in a BOCES program because there's a lot of restrictions on what are called hazardous occupations in the Department of Labor regulations. And those occupations, when you read them, they're word for word the same as the federal Department regs, but if you read them, they were written at least 100 years ago, and they don't reflect anything that's happening in a modern manufacturing environment. So that's one of the things we met with Commissioner Reardon yesterday to talk about, these are some things that we need some clarification on. How can we bring these students in, give them real career exploration opportunities in our workplaces, and so that they can make the right decision but before they go spend $100,000 to go to college for a degree that may or may not get them a job. So those are, I didn't really plan on speaking tonight, but that's kind of where we are.
I have a question.
Okay?
But I have
Ken,
some
you got a
questions. Yeah, well,
They're softballs, you'll be okay.
you mentioned that 7 students 5 were hired.
Yes.
How did they find you or you find them?
Well, we have been active for many years, stocking the pond. So we have very good relationships with a number of school districts. And we went out and did presentations, and we actually took a few other employers with us so they could present things as well. They did not have that clear path to an internship that we've been offering. This was our second cohort that we did that with. This year we had Brian was at our Manufacturing Day event at Optimax, and we offered this to more school districts. We offered it to more employers, and we've got some employer partners that are interested in coming out with us and making a presentation like that. And my metric for success for this year will be if I can get one other employer to create this model to an internship for these that they can offer when we go out on the road on these road shows that we do. We're right in the process right now of scheduling our school visits, and we'll be doing that from now until probably just before Christmas. And then there's a process that leads to that internship opportunity.
Are you Monroe County?
We're in Wayne County.
Wayne County.
Just over the county line, yep.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No? Other questions?
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We appreciate it. Timothy Darby, the Assistant Superintendent for Instructional Programs, Monroe to Orleans BOCES. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I wasn't prepared to speak, so if this comes out a little disjointed,
That's good.
forgive me. I guess I want to address several things. I think the first thing, I agree with what the first gentleman talked about in terms of, there are good jobs out there, and kids don't know about them, right? And I think there's a number of factors. I don't necessarily agree with that the problem is there's not enough shop classes. That is part of the problem, but there's some other factors. Speaking directly to that, there's only two, to my knowledge, there's only 2 higher education preparation programs in SUNY that prepare technology teachers and other teachers like that. So that's part of the reason, and I was in a school district, that we shrunk one of our technical programs because it was just very difficult to get teachers. But another, I think, a bigger reason is that I've been guilty of it as anybody. I've been in the field for 30 years in education, and we have done such a good job of messaging that college is the only way. This is kind of the boomerang effect of that. Now, your legislation, I really wholeheartedly agree with the reason and why you're looking at this. But I think part of it is the messaging to high school kids and middle school kids, okay? There's a lot involved in that. We have been trying at BOCES too, and my other BOCES colleagues, trying to get that message across that college isn't the only path, right? And in fact, it's a dual path, right? So our CTE center, we had 48% of our kids went into a career and college, right? They do both. And like Jim said, the businesses we work with, they just want people. They'll train them, they'll send them to college, they'll get them the degrees, whether it's through, a formal apprenticeship program in the unions or other ways. So part of it is messaging and trying to incentivize school districts to create their own career and tech programs, or to utilize the resources that already exist in our CTE centers, in this region. I mean, there are 6 CTE centers in the counties that you all represent, okay? School districts can only afford to send so many kids to those programs. One of the things that prevents school districts and would help school districts be able to afford to send more is of how CTE teachers are paid, right? So to be a CTE teacher, you don't have to have teaching experience, you have to have 5 years of industry experience. So you take someone with 5 or 10 or 15 years of industry experience, and they're making a pretty good salary by that point, right? They're considering coming to a BOCES to teach. they're taking big pay cuts. So it's hard to get people. Part of the reason we can't pay them more is because school districts are only reimbursed for just a portion of that CTE teacher's salary. Now, this past session, that changed. The legislature upped that a little bit, and we are totally grateful for that. But that's another way to be able to go further. I think in terms of the legislation, I think it's a good idea to try to encourage apprenticeships, but there are apprenticeships out there. I think businesses, they certainly are going to welcome a tax cut that's proposed in this legislation, but I think that they're willing, the businesses that we deal with, they're willing to do anything if we can get them people, right? And they're in our CT center all the time. In terms of the diploma piece of this legislation, creating another New York State diploma that recognizes the different industry, that largely exists already, right? There is a CTE endorsement that covers a number of different industries, and they have to have employability programs. They have to have work-based learning experiences. So all of that is in there. My concern as an educator is that provision in that. There's a lot put on state ed to create and administer those programs and to push through the diploma changes. That's going to be a real heavy lift for state ed right now. I mean, the regents right now have commissioned a Blue Ribbon Commission. They're taking a look at the whole graduation diploma, and that's going to be a big deal. And my fear would be throwing one more piece into that mix, a piece that largely already exists, could be problematic. So I think, another thing I think another speaker talked about, Rich talked about, the summer apprenticeship programs. So the same program which exposes 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade kids to an industry, the machining industry, is a great program. One of the nice things about summer is that kids are free, right? If we could somehow create paid internships or fund paid internships for high school and middle school kids to earn money and be exposed to careers in the manufacturing industries or the trades or anything like that, I think those stand a pretty good chance because you're not going to be competing with that much. Kids want summer jobs. A lot of them think they don't have time during the school year to come to a career tech center or to go do other career exploration activities. It's a perfect opportunity. It's 10 weeks of open time, if you will. So I think looking at that as an avenue to expose kids more, and I know businesses would be, I would think businesses would be very willing partners to do that. So I think that that concludes my disjointed remarks. Are there questions?
We have a few questions,
Okay.
if you wouldn't mind. First of all, in terms of your enrollment, how many students do you have go through the BOCES program here in the region? And also, are there things that happen along the way where students are denied the opportunity to go to BOCES from school districts? We've heard this in different areas. I'm just wondering what you can.
So I don't know the enrollment figures for all of the 6 CT centers in Wayne and Genesee and Monroe County. I know the Monroe 2 BOCES, which is the west side of the county, 9 school districts on the west side and 2 in Orleans County. Our enrollment's 850 kids, and that's pretty steady every year. Typically, 850 to 900. I don't know if kids are being outright denied opportunities, right? I think there are some school districts that they have to be conscious of costs, and when they're in tight situations, there may be a few less kids that come that year, but our data doesn't show that there's any school districts that are not sending kids because of that. What I think the bigger problem is the messaging and being purposeful about exposing kids to the opportunity, right? We do have some school districts that are really getting that message, right? So we've got 4 school districts now that part of their middle school career exploration programs, they are coming and doing a tour at our Career and Tech Center. So that's a good way to expose middle school kids to start thinking about it. But I think a lot more work needs to be done with the counselors and the high school teachers and quite honestly, parents, okay? Parents want to say their kids are going to this big shiny college, right? They don't talk about after their freshman year when they come back because they weren't ready or they weren't motivated and they had no idea what they were doing. I walked that path myself, right? So we need to make it socially acceptable and a legitimate option for parents and kids in high schools to pursue these great middle skill careers.
In terms of transportation and the half-day, sometimes they go to school in the morning and they go to BOCES in the afternoon. What are the concerns that you have regarding transportation, the time that they may be on the bus? Would you be more willing to support a full day at BOCES where even they have the teachers teaching the English, the core courses in the morning, and then, could you talk about that?
Yeah, personally, I don't, at least in my region, we're not that far from our districts. I mean, we have a couple where it's probably a 35-minute ride. I don't think transportation's the barrier. I think it's the time that it takes to transfer. I don't think kids would want, well, there would be some. I don't think the answer is sending kids to career tech centers for a full day. Honestly, I think the answer lies in career and tech centers helping and partnering and being incentivized to partner with school districts to bring our programs to the school districts. And that way, because another reason kids don't want to even come for a half day sometimes is like the first speaker said, they want to be with their friends. They want to be, they like their schools, and being away for 3 hours of that day or 3.5 hours, sometimes that's a deterrent.
Thank you, Kenny. I'll share your story now.
Where I live, 35 minutes on the bus isn't
Nothing.
a lot of time. You look at,
You don't even get to a gas station.
no. So it's funny. I guess we're hearing different things from different regions. Like in my region, I visited BOCES and I sat down with the students, and the students were there for 4 different school districts, and I can't remember exactly how many minutes they're on the bus, but they complained about being on the bus and going back and forth. So I asked them, I said, exactly what Mike was saying. I said, how would you like if you guys were here all day and had your teachers, the core teachers, come here and teach? Everyone in that class said they'd rather do that. So then I said to them, well, doesn't that take, what about you being from the Gouverneur School District and you being from Herman DeKalb, and each one of those kids that were in that class, it happened to be that class, was, the one girl said to me, well, I'm still in the band. I go with my friends in band practice. One kid said, I'm on the football team. So, I mean, it's interesting when you, from district to district, how you hear different things. The other thing we've heard in a lot of our district meetings, regional meetings, is they use the term rebranding a lot to us, about rebranding BOCES, even if it's a name change or something that has to be put out there so that the stigmatism of you being a BOCES kid, which parents, like what you just said, parents pushing their kids to school because they think they ought to go to college. And I just one individual in one of our meetings, 19-year-old, got up and he talked about how he fought his mother because the mother did not want him to go to BOCES. And when he was a sophomore in high school, he wanted to go to BOCES in his junior and senior year. And he argued with her. The mother was there, by the way, too. And so he talks about how he is now on schedule this year to make $65,000 a year as a 19-year-old in Lewis County now, where the average, by the way, the average income in Lewis County is 28 grand. And this kid is 19 years old, and he kidded about his sister just graduated from high school with a $75,000 debt and can't find a job, and kidding around, he said, I think I could loan her some money. Now, the kicker to all this, the mother got up and spoke. And she agreed. She fought him and fought him and fought him, and she finally gave in. But here's the kicker to this, what she said to us. I got to tell you what I do for a living. And I said, okay. She's superintendent of schools. She's a superintendent of one of the school districts. And she goes, my eyes are wide open now on what a BOCES program can do. And I think, you know, she's superintendent. She probably didn't have to get up and tell us what she did for a living, but she did. And I think that's the point when you're talking about parents pushing back on this and pushing back on guidance counselors and school districts. So we are hearing that across the state. So, yeah.
Any of my colleagues have any other questions? We thank you very much for your
Thank you
testimony.
very much.
Nice job.
Next up, Anthony Ditucci, the Chief Operating Officer, Livingston Associates. Going to pass? Okay. Joe Sanfratello, the Executive Principal, Batavia Career Tech, Genesee Valley.
It's
John? I'm sorry, John, yes. John. Boy, sorry, Steve. I owe him a drink now.
It's a long week. Huh?
Yeah, it's been a long. I'll share my story with the town prosecutor.
How's everybody tonight?
Good, how are you?
Well,
Great.
Good, good. So I did provide some talking points. Actually, it's from some of my other colleagues from around the state, as far as BOCES are concerned in all. So again, like Tim said, I do have some talking points, but maybe a little disjointed with some of the things that I just wrote down. We'll start with kind of that rebranding, Ken, that you just talked about. And we are the Genesee Valley Educational Partnership. But each and every day, I'm from Genesee Valley BOCES. And so we've gone through that rebranding, that stigmatism. I have been the executive principal for the last 7 years at our BOCES Center. And that's still sort of an uphill battle that we fight, but it's coming around. And I think that it's more exposure that career and tech centers and students get and parents get of the information that is shared around the state. I think will change that even more as we move on. As far as the trade teachers are concerned, when we have to hire somebody, that's a very difficult process. Either one, they don't fit the criteria, or two, we can't pay them enough. Just like it was said from before, they're taking a substantial pay cut for what it is that they do. But I will say that they are passionate about their trade. They're passionate about the skills that they can provide kids, and that just makes all of our centers a lot better. Second talking point is that it's right on of kids don't know the jobs that are out there. It's wild to see kids come through our centers. We do provide tours to middle school kids, to high school kids from around our region. And we know, talking with workforce development, talking with economic development, in Genesee, Livingston, Wyoming counties, that kids don't know what jobs are in their backyard. They don't know what Liberty Pumps might do. They don't know what Graham Manufacturing does until they go in and see, or if they have a guest speaker come into a room and show them what it is that they do. And so that's another aspect. You talk about credits for high school, and where do you start? A kid coming into 9th grade, they need to have their high school mapped out. Yeah. They have to have enough credits in order to graduate and to graduate on time. And so if they want to come for their junior and senior year, their 9th and 10th grade year is crucial to get the credits that they want, or they won't have an opportunity, unfortunately, to come to BOCES. But we do, within our BOCES and other BOCES around the state, do offer third year ELA math and science credits. So that does give some flexibility in schedules. So that does help. The other aspect, talked about job regulations. So Optimax, you had mentioned it. You talk about internships, job shadows, all of those things. If a student is not in an approved, state-approved career and tech education program, then they can't go into that business. If they are in that program, then they do have the opportunity, being less than 18 years old, to go into one of the quote-unquote hazardous jobs that's outlined in the state and federal regulations. And businesses, not all businesses know and understand that either. So we're going around and making sure that businesses are aware of that. And if they want to, talk to, any of us about that, then we can provide those regulations. The other thing that it's sometimes that the businesses themselves have a regulation saying that they can't have a kid in there that's younger than 18. So if they change that, then that will open up some other opportunities, not only for the business, but also for the kids as a whole. As far as the overall talking points that my colleagues have discussed and that I handed out to you, regional advisory board. So a lot of us from where we are in Genesee County to Monroe 1, Monroe 2, my JMT, Wayne Finger Lakes, we do work with a lot of the same businesses, and it's a requirement for us to have an advisory board. And so if we did regional advisory boards, I know that Optimax has, even though they're in Wayne County, we started a relationship with my manufacturing program for them to come out and work with kids and give kids the exposure that they deserve and the businesses deserve. College articulation agreements, they are different all around the state. And so if I might have my auto tech program have an articulation agreement from, say, ECC or MCC, it might be different than an articulation agreement that, say, Monroe 1 or Monroe 2 might have. So, on there, a talking point about college articulations and trying to make those consistent across the state. Expand pre-apprentice models and youth apprenticeship models. I talked about youth apprenticeships and the barriers that some businesses might have, but the youth apprenticeships, as long as kids are in a CTE program, then they are able to do that, which makes it for school districts to have a little bit of a hindrance of kids being able to do that if they're not enrolled in a career and tech program. As far as other apprenticeship models, job shadows, internships, those, then we go into boot camps and summer boot camps that I know that others are offering, which is the way to go. And lastly, career exploration and awareness. That's something that we tried to do. We talk about exposure in middle school in Genesee County and working with Batavia City School District and also Alexander School District. We have fourth graders that come in. We send teachers to programs there. It's called fourth grade innovators. So that's something where we expose, one of my career and tech teachers will go into that fourth grade and we'll expose them to something that they might be doing in their program. But then we take an entire day and have the fourth graders come and visit our center. And then the fourth graders will travel all around the center for a half a day. The other half, they actually spend an hour in two different programs, which really then gives them exposures to whatever it is that their interest might be or whatever it is that they were able to take a look at. So you do have those talking points, and if there's any questions, please ask.
Any questions from the panel?
Thanks for coming on such short notice, John.
You are welcome.
All right.
Thanks, John.
All right.
Thank you,
Good
John.
job.
And thank you for the bullet points. We appreciate them. Thank you. Chris Swasey, the Executive Vice President, Genesee County Economic Development Council.
Thank you, everybody. I'm going to echo off of John's comments. Him and I worked more together these last year or two than ever before. One thing I wanted to point out, Mark, John's, we have a passion together. I do play basketball as well. And
You might be good, though.
Well, depends on the day, right?
Yeah.
But, I do talk to the youth there, and that is the fountain of youth, but we play against some kids that are younger. But it's good to always get that sounding board from these kids and say what's working for you, what's not, and similar stories I can attest to. One of the things that I've been doing on the economic development side of the game is I've been going into schools over the last probably 3 or 4 years. We've actually had a workforce consultant on our staff for 12 years. And so we knew way back 12 years ago, this has to link. And so when we were going to the schools over the last 3 years, it's the same story we're hearing, right? The kids don't know the legacy companies in town. They have no idea, no clue, right? So instead of trying to, let it go, if you will, we wanted to do things to be effective. And so one thing, and things that I'm going to talk about is what I feel we got really effective in Genesee County. I started calling myself a career coach. So I took my youth coaching days and I put my hat and whistle on to go into the schools when I talk to the kids now. So I didn't want to be seen as an old economic development guy. I wanted to be seen as a career coach. And we kind of have fun with it when we did this presentation. So we started talking to the kids about the careers that are in their backyard that they didn't know about, all the STEM and skilled trades, of course. And so we said we got to search for different ways to make it faster, easier, and more effective, right, ultimately to the kids. How do we make STEM and skilled trades sexy, right? That's the whole bottom line. So we've been working hard at doing a lot of different programs, and one program that we've seen that was really cool was this thing called Edge Factor. And Edge Factor is a software system. It's a platform with a series of YouTube videos that talks about STEM and skilled trades in a career, a very easy way to watch like a YouTube video, 1 to 2 minutes. And it has like rock and roll. There'll be like a BMX bike doing flips, and then it attracts kids' attention, and all of a sudden you tie into the sprocket and you show that how that's manufactured. So that type of career exploration. And it allows the teachers too to take those platforms and those videos to help them prepare for the day. And then it also allows the teachers to send homework assignments so the parents can see those career paths too. So we think this is like state-of-the-art technology, and we implemented that in 14 of our 22 schools in the Genesee Valley Educational Partnership. And it wasn't easy, but it takes work, effort, and collaboration and cooperation from everybody involved. And based on that, we just really kicked it off last year in January, and as of this year, we had 1,700 logins that's recorded right now. So we're starting to see an impact from the school districts on that program. The other thing to make things sexy, it's kind of one of these pictures, we learned from the Finger Lakes region. They had a Finger Lakes Works With Your Hands event, and they did a fantastic job that myself and Jay Lazzaroni were co-chairs of Genesee County's version of it, and we call it the GLOW region, Genesee, Livingston, Orleans, and Wyoming County. So we did it this year, and we had 1,000 students, 25 different school districts, grades 8 through 12. Steve Hawley was there. He can attest to it as well. But when you see the kids and their expression of their faces, it's immeasurable. Once they get exposed to these career paths, they're excited. When John talked about the 4th graders, they said it was the best field trip they ever been on to go over to see his school. Same thing happened with Glow With Your Hands. We got the feedback from not only the teachers, we had 58 vendors there. We had over 80 volunteers for the day. And when you talk to everybody, it was just a glowing, not to use glowing again, but it was a glowing event in these kids' minds and faces. And so when you see somebody picking up the hammer for the first time, I mean, to us, it's kind of crazy, right? And these kids, for the first time, never picked up a hammer before. Now we're trying to do more with that in terms of trying to now lead them into pre-apprenticeship programs. So as John had mentioned, we're doing really well with 11th and 12th grade pre-apprenticeship programs, and this year we're going to try to kick off a summer boot camp of 2020 in pre-apprenticeship for kids 18 to 24-year-olds that didn't take the CTE path. So we're working really well with GCC on that. My colleagues over there doing a great job as coordinating all that. But we still need to make things more sexy, right? So we're trying to look at like the welding class to get a welding simulator that's more of a software based, like a virtual reality type thing, so kids can kind of feel that career path, but in their world, right? So that's one of the opportunities we're looking at. Right now, John's got a mechatronics lab going on. So how do you make mechatronics sexy in high school, right? So he's got a lab that he's going to need brand new equipment so the kids can be exposed to that. So those are some of the things that we're trying to work on. One really creative way that we really enticed kids is with a new company that came to town that helped the diesel tech program out. And it was a company called Freightliner. We brought them in, they're from Buffalo, and they were looking for a location. So on my economic development hat side, we brought them in, happened to be right next to their school, right along the thruway, 46,000 square foot facility. But not only did they want to be, right there located in Batavia, but they wanted to have a part in the school system. So they put on a training center inside their facility, and one of their service bays is dedicated to the students. Again, see the students glow. We had a ribbon cutting. John brought his students there. The kids were lit up. And he's got about 50 of these kids that are going to be in that program. And now they're going to be working hand in hand with somebody that's in their career industry. And those are the things that make STEM and skilled trades sexy. So those are the things that we're trying to really talk about and really do. And trying to be focused in those areas is the key, versus trying to say we're STEM to everybody. We're trying to really align them towards those industry channels. And we feel that all that is going to see success. Of course, it's a long path, but we were really pleased the other day. John had an open house, and I said, John, do we know how many people? He goes, the parking lot was full. So that tells you a lot about things that are going on and the excitement that kids are starting to get into these career paths. So I just wanted to give you a testimony of the effectiveness that we're doing in the GLOW region. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions for Chris? Great.
Thanks for coming on short notice, Chris. Go Packers.
Our next,
He's a Packers fan.
Hey.
our next invited speaker is Tom Turnbow, the president of the Genesee Chamber of Commerce. Okay. Rick Hill. Kent Graham.
I'm the technical facility manager at Barry's Plastic in Macedon, New York. We're a 460 employee company in Macedon. We make plastic products. We're a global company. We've been around in Macedon for 8 years, but many years as a company. Was not prepared to talk, so I put some notes together. At Barry's, we're pretty lucky. And we have employees retiring with 40 years, 42 years, 30 years, a lot of long-term employees. We're also lucky that we have extra manufacturing space. We had executives in last week, and we're trying to move processes to Macedon. So we're trying to bring business into New York. Taxes are taxes. Utilities are good. Utilities are strong. They're cheap. We are struggling selling, getting labor in. So not just skilled trade, skilled manufacturing operators. We cannot bring in 17-year-olds. We do not have that ability. We cannot do it. We need to. We absolutely need to. It's hard to keep maintenance people. They can go anywhere. We're a two-shift operation. We have to entice more. We know that, but we need to get them in the door. We need to have them out there. So if I envision if we could bring in a student, we've talked to FLCC, we've talked to MCC a little bit. They're willing to work with us on bringing programs in to teach robots, to teach automation, to teach conveyors, to teach bearings, to teach all this stuff. I can't imagine to graduate high school knowing that you're going to make $22 to $32 an hour with no student loans and have that future in front of you of a place that's going to be there for a long time. And not just that, manufacturing is not no longer, for us, picking something up, putting it down. It's running robots. It's conveyors. If we could teach these people coming out of school, students, how does that conveyor go up and down? How's that solenoid work? What is a solenoid? What's a drive? What's a servo? Just to have that basis, we could absolutely pay more. You know, that's a value that we would just have, you know, and sorry, struggling a little bit now. So with all, if we could have all that, if we could start that, people don't know what we do. People don't want to be in manufacturing. You know, it is, you know, it's a gloomy building as you drive in. Brian's been there, you walk through, you go, wow, there's robots. It's bright, it's clean, it's dry, it's warm. We offer good benefits, we offer good pay. You know, it's just finding the people, the entice them to come in, to sell the parents, to sell the guidance counselor, to sell the teachers. You know, it's manufacturing. You're gonna have a good life. I mean, there's people retiring 40 years. You know, so that is, you know, a big issue that we have. You know, like I said, we want to bring in. Barry's Global wants to bring in more processes. Just right now, we are struggling selling labor. You know.
Thank you. Any questions from the panel? I think it's just important to point out the importance of the partnerships here that we have. We have business, we have labor, we have education. And all of you have taken the time, we have more speakers, to come tonight and to work on the solution for these pathways. And we recognize that, for example, college, and myself, I'm an attorney, so I went to college and to law school, but I have 3 brothers, 2 of them, a teacher, an accountant, and the 4th one, now Steve's heard this story before, and so is Ken, is the smartest one of all. He's an electrician. He can wire the room. You don't want me touching the room, trust me. But it's important, myself as an attorney who recognizes that we have the skills gap right now. And we talk about the economy, we talk about jobs, we talk about infrastructure, we talk about building, and without individuals putting them on a path for not just the middle skills gap, we recognize that these are professional skills. We were with a carpenter last night, and you know, you think about the perception of a carpenter, and you think about wood, but then you're talking about all of the components that go into it. You know, the concrete, the lighting, everything that goes into it. It's really amazing, and something that we have to be very proud of in New York State, to encourage parents to encourage their children to go on a path through these professional skills, because there are good paying jobs out there. They're going to have a great life in these areas. And I just want to, you know, take a moment here to thank all of you for being here. We're very excited about this proposal that we're going to put forth, and we're taking all of the ideas, and there will be modifications to that legislation. And because it is a critical thing, not just for today, but for the next 10, 20, 30 years and beyond going forward. So again, thank you, and we appreciate your patience. And we're very excited to hear from all of you as we go through. So thank you very much. Go ahead. Yes.
I think one other part, at least for manufacturing, I think that there have to be classes on attendance, why attendance is important for manufacturing, why it's important to come to work. We can't afford to have 10 extra people. We have struggles on Saturdays and Sundays, 12 call-offs, 16 call-offs. We shut down lines. I have to answer to people why, you know, so it's not just a skill trade. I think it's also a skill life lesson of why it's important to come to work, why, and to see the benefits you do have. In school, you can miss a ton of days now. I had 2 kids. You know, you were allowed to miss a lot. That carries over into manufacturing, and it really struggles for us. Anybody's welcome to come to our facility anytime for a tour or anything.
Cool.
Thank you. We've heard that too throughout the life skills, how you shake somebody's hand, how do you do a resume. Yes, ma'am.
Can I
Yes,
take back my pass?
you can.
Good. So I won't take a terribly long time with my title. It's Angela Grouse. I'm the Director for Education to Employment Initiatives at the Livingston County Education Alliance, which is the foundation arm of our Chamber of Commerce. The role that we have opened just this year in our office is new to us, but existed previously under what was the Business Education Alliance in Livingston County. The focus of our work is to, through partnership with our 9 area school districts in Livingston County, through a 526 COSER agreement with our BOCES, provide career awareness, career exploration, and work readiness programming for our 9 area school districts, but having the benefit of delving into our chamber membership of 600 plus members in the Livingston County area to be able to bridge that gap between education and employment. The challenge, I think, is multifold, and the legislative work that you're proposing is outstanding. I just want to share with you that career limiting begins in elementary school for students. They start taking a look at what opportunities are available to them and making decisions that limit. They should be at the top of their employment funnel at that age, right? The world should be their oyster. They should have all kinds of opportunities, but you don't know what you don't know. And so we need to find a mechanism to better make our elementary school, our middle school, and our high school students aware of the opportunities in their regions, in their state, or in their own backyard. And we've heard that tonight from employers, from other professionals in similar industries, that students don't understand what the jobs are that exist in the world today, and they don't know how to get access to that information. So we are looking at programming that will encompass career fairs at the elementary school level, lunch and learn programming where we bring career experts in different industries in based on student interest, but based also on employer opportunity in our region. And those lunch and learns take place at the middle school and the high school level. Talking about career exploration days where you're looking at advanced manufacturing, agriculture industries, and you're bringing groups of students in to rotate through a panel of presentations to experience all the opportunities that are out there. That's great, and we're going to do all we can to educate our students on the opportunities that are available to them. I think one of the biggest hurdles is re-educating parents. Parents are still the driving force of decision for our young people. Okay, well, I thought I was at home, but maybe I wasn't with my 4 kids. But I think parents have these last 40 years of the pendulum push. Everybody needs a college education. We did a really great job of moving that process forward. We now need to bring that pendulum closer to the center again and make parents understand that a manufacturing job doesn't mean you're going into a dirty, greasy warehouse with people who are smoking on the job to do work that you're going to be grinding over a conveyor belt for years on end. I think we really need to not only re-educate our students, but we need to re-educate our parents. Rebranding a BOCES isn't going to change what BOCES is, but I think parents need to understand what BOCES is the gateway for. What kinds of careers are out there, what kinds of opportunities are available for your young people, and what's the cost-benefit analysis of those careers. That's it.
Very well said, thank you. Any questions from the panel? It's such a common, Angela, it's such a common theme throughout the 5 sessions, our 6 sessions, because oftentimes, 25, 30, 40 years ago, the big push was college. And we're not saying even that college is a bad thing. It's actually sometimes a dual track. We heard from many of the BOCES educators who says their kids have gone through the program and have great credentials to go on to the next step in college. So it's a dual track, it's just not one. And like you mentioned in terms of the education of the parents, see, a lot of the mindset has been you have to go on that college track. And it's a common theme, but it's something we have to look at social media, getting out earlier on with the parents, and exposing them as well as the students.
And whoever in this room or the next room that comes up with the key to reaching those parents will be the hero.
That's right. We'll put forth some solutions.
Maybe it's you. Thank you. Maybe. We'll hope.
Thank you. Lynn Freed from the Rochester and Genesee Valley Regional Director, Workforce Development Institute. Okay. Gregory Main, Principal of Special Programs, Wayne Figure Lakes, BOCES. Thank you.
Good evening. It was about a little shy of 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon when my assistant superintendent called me and said, hey, can you check your email? I really would like it if you could possibly attend this. Oh, okay. So I did prepare some talking points, but speaker after speaker after speaker before me stole them. And I keep jotting down more.
Great minds think alike.
Yes. But a couple things that I wanted to bring up that kind of resonated is that, again, representing a BOCES, there are 37 of them across the state of New York. And I know that Assemblyman Blankenbush had mentioned that as you guys are doing the grand tour of New York State, a lot of the comments that were coming out of the audiences really kind of reflected that there are these regional differences. And I would like to propose, at least throw this out there, that oftentimes it could very well be one of those 37 BOCES that is able to respond and be flexible enough to deal with those regional differences and provide some of those career pathways for young folks coming through the school systems. And the other side of things, for the past 13 years, I've been pretty much strictly involved with either incarcerated education or adult literacy. Those are my two basic pet programs, among other things that are kind of under my umbrella. One thing I'd like to also maybe draw your attention to, and perhaps you can go back to your fellow members on the corrections task force, is perhaps even looking at some of these young folks who have had their first little dabble with the law, and trying to plug them into some of these types of training programs. This has been a population that's been largely overlooked, especially when the economy was suffering, unemployment was high, employers didn't necessarily have to look very far for a potential employee to come in the door. All of a sudden, even for McDonald's, you were seeing that a high school diploma was a necessary credential just to get a job there. Things have kind of flipped. And so a lot of the young folks, and even older adults that I'm working with that are coming out of the correctional facilities, these are individuals, they're not dangerous, not violent, they've just had a brush with the law, and are very interested in possibly getting into some of these types of training programs. And one of the real keys to reducing recidivism is getting people meaningful employment, something that they value. Same thing too with some of the folks that we're dealing with in my adult literacy programs. These are people who are 20, 30, 40 years old. And while I think something that's been echoed is that college isn't for everybody, I will say that high school isn't for everybody. We have hundreds of thousands of people across New York State that drop out of high school. They don't have their high school diploma or high school equivalency diploma. And the funding mechanisms that are in place for adult literacy are threadbare, I guess would be maybe even an exaggeration with regards to providing just basic high school equivalency instruction, but to also perhaps have some funding. I know that there's $5 million proposed in this, but look to perhaps how can we bring in some of the high school equivalency programs that are around New York State, where you have these individuals who are very interested in advancing themselves. I mean, these are people, we have folks that are in their 60s and 70s that are deciding, you know what, I really want to earn my diploma, and they're coming back. I think that speaks volumes to the character and the dedication that they might potentially present an employer. I forgot, there was like one other really cool thing. Oh, I just want to say that Optimax is really pretty cool place to walk around in. One thing I will say is I bring that up only because our Wayne Figure Lakes BOCES does have two wonderful tech centers. Our tech center in Williamson, Wayne Tech and Career Center, has been, I think, funneling quite a few young folks the way of Optimax and other companies there in that little 104 corridor with the giant windmills. We also have a P-Tech program, Pathway to Thank you. All right, yeah, early college, high school. Opened up a brand new facility right next door to FLCC's Newark campus in Newark, New York. The students there can walk out of there not only with a high school diploma, but with an associate's degree in a number of fields that are, these middle level skill or even advanced skill type occupations. So just a couple things out there.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the panel?
No, thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Perspective.
Appreciate it. Justin DeMartin, Executive Principal, Wayne's Finger Lakes BOCES. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you. Greg stole a few of my talking points back there, so didn't know we'd be talking back to back here. But thank you for your time tonight. Greg had mentioned that we do have quite a few different programs. I know some of you have been out to witness the grand opening that we have of our PTech program, which is a partnership with Finger Lakes Community College. And I think that's really where our focus is with the partnerships that we have, not only with our local community colleges, but with also our local businesses, Optimac, Max, we have GW Lisk, amongst many others, and I really think that's where the building blocks and the foundation of all of this are, is it is continuing to build those partnerships, with our business and industry partners out there. We had our CTE Advisory Council meeting this morning, and one of the comments that was brought up, and it kind of echoes what a lot of other BOCES colleagues have said, is that when one of our principals came on board to our centers last year, someone said to him, this really is a hidden gem that we have here. And he said, I really thought about that comment that you said, hidden gem. Yeah, it sounds good, but that means that people aren't understanding what it is or that we're even here to provide the support. We have 1,100, 1,200 students between our two buildings that we have, like Greg had said, but it really is about getting that word out and starting earlier. It is starting at the elementary level, starting at the middle school level, and starting to get students interested in our programs and making sure that we're supporting our component districts. We have 25 of them, and really supporting them to make sure that we are not just marketing, but we're really supporting them and supporting their needs for the students that we service, whether it's within their own component districts or within our buildings as well. So I think it's really looking at how can we incentivize our school districts, how can we incentivize our business and community partners to really make sure that we are working together and supporting to make sure that our students, when they leave, whether it's our component district high schools or our CTE centers, our PTech centers, that they're leaving with jobs and that they're supporting the industry that's out there. One of the things that we started last school year between our two centers is a signing day. And what this signing day is you have signing days for students who are entering college for, sports and academic scholarships. This is a signing day for our students who are going into the industry and who are going into businesses. And we're celebrating them because they're going in, like many other people have mentioned, making $25, $30 an hour right out of high school. We're acknowledging their successes and their future by going in and working right away. And I think that's something huge, and it's getting that message out there that, CTE, it may not be for everyone, but it could be for you. And that one class, that one teacher that you witness or that you experience during that 2 years that you're there could make a difference in your lives. So I think it's just continuing to get that message out there, and with your support, we can continue to do that and make sure that these students are finding successes after high school. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Any questions from the panel?
Thank you.
Off the hook. Dr. Kate Sheffin, the Provost and Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs, Genesee County Community College. That was a mouthful. It was good. It's a great title.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this invitation to speak this evening. I'm going to start by dispelling any assumptions you may have about me being a stuffy academic. I was raised by a father who owned a construction company, and under his tutelage learned heating, ventilating, and air conditioning, both on the job and through school at Carrier and York Corporation. And in 1993, Monroe Community College came to me and said, would you teach workforce training in HVAC? We have money from the government to retrain the folks who were laid off from the American Can Company out in Fairport. And over at the Monroe No. 1 BOCES, they'll let you teach at night and afternoons there and retrain these individuals. So myself and one other individual began teaching, and that led me to where I am today. All these years later, having taught many, many years from Monroe Community College, I oversaw the Applied Tech Center on West Henrietta Road for most of my career, which is the HVAC, tooling and machining, automotive facility that Monroe Community College ran. I've worked with Russ McCallie and taught at Xerox and Kodak and many other companies on EPA Section 608 training, et cetera. So while people think I'm an academic and I must come up here and tout the importance of college, I will tell you that I understand the importance of skills. And the two are not mutually exclusive by any stretch of the imagination. So, so if you have those thoughts about me, please forget about them. I'm not a stuffy academic. I'm also one of the first 30 women ever certified in HVAC in the United States of America through the NATE organization. And Local 13 offered me a position many years ago, which I regret not taking today. Probably be retired, sitting in Florida on a yacht or something. But I agree with most every comment made here this evening. I have put together a few talking points directly related to the legislation that you're proposing, only to make this hopefully a better document. Some specific suggestions are on the first page. And basically, the area that spoke about college credit for skills. Absolutely, we should award college credit for skills taught by BOCES and other institutions that are offering equivalent coursework that would be offered, let's say, at Monroe Community College's Applied Tech Center. But I do think that you should stipulate, not to mislead a student, that training will give you automatically 15 random credits that are transferable to any SUNY college, because of course we know that's not the case. And so by simply stating that it would be applied to the pursuit or continuation of post-secondary degree in the apprenticeship discipline, I think this would be much more realistic. And I think every SUNY institution would be happy to do that. So, for instance, students at Monroe No. 1 BOCES doing HVAC would have 15 transferable credits in HVAC. But not necessarily in automotive technology. So it would be much clearer for the individual. On Part A, line 54, I spoke to that. Part A, line 45 to 58. I think specifying some of the employer obligations might be helpful. My question when reading this was, does this say that the employer has to maintain, 50% of the individual's full-time, part-time? Is there any time commitment? Is it a 3-month commitment, a 1-year commitment? Because I do think that there are programs that have been run in the past where there is a job guarantee at the end, if you will, and there's usually some sort of time commitment that it would be for, a month or 3 months or 1 year. I do think that would help an individual make a decision as to whether or not this would be worth their time and effort. Part B, line 22 to 30, I do think that when this legislation is passed, it does state that the State Apprenticeship Training Council, State Workforce, et cetera, can decide upon the appropriate assessment of the technical skills. And I'm just encouraging you all to consider adopting nationally normed standards of assessment for all of these. They're out there already. They don't need to be recreated. And so, for instance, in HVAC, there's what's called an ICE test, which is an entry-level technical skill assessment for students to opt into if they wish to take it. And it's a nationally normed certification that you've been trained well in HVAC. It's not an experience test. To be experienced, that would be a different certification. The same with automotive technology, the same with CNA, LPN, healthcare careers. So there's nationally normed standards, and I do think that would help the student use those skills much more across the United States, and they would be well recognized without any scrutiny whatsoever. So some direct suggestions. And on page 2, I just put some more general comments. They're not specific to the legislation as it's written. The enhanced Regents diploma, of course, I think that's a fantastic idea, but my concern is that we ensure that the basic Regents diploma is not sacrificed in the process of enhancing a Regents diploma. So many of the employers are talking about soft skills, reading, writing, teamwork, critical thinking, problem solving. And unfortunately, even as a technical specialist, I know the value of making sure that employee can, you know, read the new documentation on your new furnace. Understand the wiring diagram. What's different from last year to this year? I mean, those are skills that make an employee valuable, and they cannot do that if they're not soundly grounded in some basic abilities. So, so the assurance that a Regents diploma is first and foremost about getting good high school skills and then enhanced. Because this legislation is for 11th and 12th graders, I ask that people consider the fact that there are various socioeconomic needs of our 11th and 12th graders. For instance, in a rural area such as Genesee County, it's not easy to get to Liberty Pumps from Batavia. It's not easy to get to some of these companies, and that means there has to be transportation, there has to be, you know, possibly special clothes they need to wear, safety and protective out clothing, and so on and so forth. And perhaps the employers will provide all this, but perhaps not, and it doesn't state either way. So I think somewhere in there, if there's some ability to help the student with some of the basic needs they're going to need to be successful, it's worth considering, or at least putting that responsibility either on the partner, academic partner, or the corporate partner. It should be spelled out, I think, to some extent. And then the last thing is high schoolers and employment soft skills. You know, one of the problems I've always had working in technical, and we have advisory boards as well, is the expectations of our advisory board members, right? I think it's Malcolm Gladwell that said you need 10,000 hours of something to be an expert at it. And we get 2 years at a community college to teach a skill. And in that 2 years, we have a number of things we have to do besides the skill. We have to, of course, get them through some basic liberal arts education and so on. And so when we're dealing with 11th and 12th graders and soft skills, you know, I think the expectations need to be clear that some of the basic work ethic, problem solving, teamwork, professionalism, communication, their expectations need to be realistic. We're not going to be able to put out technical professionals through, you know, somebody going through an 11th and 12th grade program in a summer apprenticeship type of deal. So, you know, I think everyone has to have realistic expectations and a commitment to these young people, if in fact this goes forward for this audience, to give them the time for basic human development, maturation, and understand that that's going to be something that we're going to have to supplement in addition to teaching them the work skills that they need to be successful. So I'm extremely excited about this, and of course we will partner willingly with our partners at BOCES and any other, the GCEDC and others, to make this successful. And we're never either or, college or technical training. It can be both. I'm a perfect example of that, and having taught it for many, many years, and probably thousands of technicians in Rochester who I see every weekend at Home Depot when I'm there shopping. So it has been the greatest privilege of my life to teach those folks, and probably more so now than I'm an administrator, and it's not very rewarding. But I do appreciate your time and your attention and your effort in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Are there any questions from the panel? Yes, Brian.
Yeah. Just one quick question. Is your enrollment down at your college?
Yes.
By how much, do you know?
We are down this year by 4%, but you know, cumulatively over the last 3 years or 4 years, that's been pretty much the standard. And so, you know, we're feeling it a little bit because it compounds. But we are managed very, very well by President Sunser, and we are confident that we will weather this just fine and continue to serve our community without an issue.
One last question.
Mm-hmm.
Of the enrollment, how many out-of-state students do you have?
We have, well, first off, we have 140 international students. We have probably, the majority of the remaining students are probably in-state, although they are not all from the GLOW region. We have about 50 students from the New York City area, and we serve a number of students from both Erie County and Monroe County. But probably beyond that, then the remainder is the GLOW region.
Thank you.
Steve? Any other questions from the panel? Thank you, Doctor. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And the comments you made on the legislation. We do
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Dr. John McGowan, the Director of Business Employee Skills Training Center, Genesee Community College.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Thank you,
And I
Doctor.
just want to echo Dr. Schieffen's comments that we really take a lot of pride in our college, and we work with our partners from DC EDC as well as GVEP BOCES. And currently, right now, I know that Chris Swasey mentioned and John Sampatello mentioned the efforts to train and work with our high school students. And right now, we're working on a mechatronics type of and CNC, with the mechatronics being the forefront, and that's going to be a boot camp in the summer of 2020. So we consider ourselves a partner with that effort, but we're excited to be included in that effort as well, because we see the value as you heard this evening. We also have, from the Best Center perspective, I'm the director of the Best Center, which, by the way, is Business and Employee Skills Training. So we really, a little bit different than you've heard tonight, we work with exclusively the majority of our clients and employers and employees, incumbent employees. But those incumbent employees could be anywhere from age 18, probably right through their 60s. And as we all know, and I hear a common theme throughout New York State, even at the conferences that I've been attending, is the aging workforce. So how do we fill that gap, not only as a skills gap, but how do we fill the age gap as well, as far as generational? So that's again, that's another challenge, but we work within the opportunity to really work with our incumbent employees. And I know that, for example, working right now with a local employer, Chasix Automotive out of Batavia, and we're working with them for we've got 8 of their employees, and 7 male, 1 female, and that's a quality assurance auditor, and that's part of our apprenticeship program. So we're a partner with that, and we really feel that those type of activities as far as apprenticeship. I know we talk a lot about the high schools and the students K through 12, but again, the incumbent employees are just as important, because they're right out of high school, or they could be a veteran of a organization, and you know what? It kind of just gives them a little bit rebirth as far as some hope, okay? Because a lot of times, again, in manufacturing or any occupation, you might work 15, 20, 25 years and maybe not have an opportunity to get involved with an apprenticeship. So, and I think that bodes well, not only for them personally and psychologically, but a lot of them take a lot of pride on just being a mentor towards the younger employees. So I think that mentorship adds a lot of value to it. But, this evening I've heard a lot of common themes, and I do agree with the value of bringing back apprenticeships. But I just wanted to kind of reinforce the fact that when we're in partnership with our employers through the GLOW area, we often think about the incumbent employees as well and what value they bring as well. So as we talk about apprenticeship, let's not forget that we have, we have the millennials out there, we have the the Gen X, the Gen Ys, and I guess the new generation is Gen Z, okay? But, those are important employees as well, to be able to have some hope as far as being involved with a skills train as well as the K through 12 population, so. That's really all I have.
Thank you,
Questions?
Doctor. Are there any questions from the panel? And you raised very good points there about beyond just the 11th and 12th grade. We've heard that as a common theme, and we'll probably likely incorporating that as part of our legislation as well.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Michael Sykes, the Workforce Development Counselor, Ontario County.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm not sure I have any talking points that have not already been mentioned more than once, but I appreciate the opportunity to be here. So I guess I'll talk a little bit about my experience. I'm a workforce development counselor and also a business services representative with workforce development. So having those dual roles means that I carry the youth caseload for our office. And I work and collaborate with the youth counselor that we have on staff to run the WIOA youth program. But on the flip side of that, I also work with businesses and run programs like the on-the-job training program or the incumbent training program, which will reimburse a business half of the wages if they agree to take on an employee who does not have a particular skill set. And these are all aimed at that middle skill set. And we've really found a great deal of success with this, not only short-term but also long-term, which is why I'm very excited to see the legislation that you're proposing here. You know, so through our office, this lack of awareness that we kind of keep seeing as a recurring theme is something that we see every day. And when we get those youth in there that I'm working with, or other people as well, you know, if you can create that awareness, not only of what programs are available, but the fact that you're not going to starve to death, you know, working, that you have a solid salary, that you have good benefits. There really is that moment where you kind of see that light bulb click on and they become very interested. And I think that's one of the reasons that we see the success rates in the on-the-job training program or the incumbent worker training program, where they provide the middle skills to existing employees that then often results in a pay bump or often results in a promotion, and really long-term skills gain is something very important. And through, you know, FAME, the Finger Lakes Advanced Manufacturing Enterprise that runs Finger Lakes Works with Their Hands, there are attempts at trying to make sure that youth are aware of these options. And there's a great deal of attempts through workforce development, through the local WIB office as well. And we really see that once you start working with the youth and talking with them, they're very enthused about working with their hands. And that's one thing they don't want from a job is repetition or being bored. You know, and we've had presenters talk about the change in manufacturing and production processes. And you'll see youth who are hanging over a phone and clicking away. Well, that phone really isn't too many steps away from some of the computerized equipment that they're going to be using anyway. So, you know, I think the success is there. I think the potential is there. But I would also echo what other people have said and really implore you to make sure that there is a very aggressive advertising that goes along with you know, the actual legislation itself. My master's was in school counseling. During an internship, I remember a college came in and basically took the counseling department out to a baseball game. I mean, the college lobby is very strong, and they are very active, and they're very aggressive in some ways. Not in a bad way, but they're very, very present there. So I think getting those other stakeholders involved, as other people have already said, you know, making sure the school counselors have this information is critical. And we try to do that through consistent communication through our office. We have a newsletter that goes out. We do try to push out into the schools whenever possible, but we still see that theme as college is the only option to success. But I think the incentivizing of this as well with the tax credit, I think that's very important. And that's a message that we get from the businesses is because we have the ability to reimburse, you know, some of the wages from the employees' training, it helps offset the production loss to the business to provide the training to that particular employee. And even if it's a little bit, you know, it might be a few $1,000s, you know, that to a small business is absolutely critical. And we've heard time and again really how much this is a benefit not only to the person being trained, but also to the business itself. And that's, you know, that's something that we kind of see every day. The personal skills for success piece, we see that as well. And in order to address that, we actually have a personal skills for success program that is taught by myself and a couple other people who have taught it. Skill Up is another training program that's been brought in, and that's actually kind of a self-directed learning that can take place online as well. It might be an avenue if you wanted to address some of those some of those issues, because through the WIOA Youth Program, that's one thing we work on, is taking students on tours of businesses, but also, also working at the same time to help them understand what is professional behavior. What is it to be punctual and show up on the job? So I think there's a lot of pieces to come together. That is just my experience. It's what I see, but we see really the success of similar programs all the time. But I think pushing this down into the schools more, hopefully is going to help address some of the employment gaps, because employers and businesses are saying they cannot find enough people, especially people with those skill sets. And as we see that national demographic shift, baby boomers are leaving employment, there's that vacuum that's coming in behind them. Coincidentally, it might be a good time for this program and for this legislation, as you also see college enrollments starting to dip. So hopefully this works out very well. Hopefully some of this information was helpful, but I appreciate the opportunity to talk.
Thank you very much, Michael. Any questions from the panel? Marjorie? No, you're good? Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Well, just one comment, but Mike, this is, listening to everybody from academia, and it reminds me of about 10 years ago, South Carolina did what we're talking about. South Carolina started promoting job skills, job trade skills in junior and senior year. They had companies wanting to come to South Carolina, and the community colleges went out there and said, what do you need us to teach? They said welding, manufacturing skills. And, in the last 10 years in South Carolina, BMW moved in, they're expanding plants. Volvo is moving in, another foreign company. Honda is down there. The new Boeing 747 line it's going to be manufactured in South Carolina, down in Charleston. They could have stayed out in Seattle, Washington. They moved to South Carolina. Now, there may be some advantages. Taxes are a little cheaper in South Carolina, but taxes don't mean anything if you don't have a skilled workforce. And, taxes, along with everything else, is the cost of doing business. But without skilled labor, the manufacturing's not going to move in. And manufacturing jobs generate a lot of service jobs. And that's what we're trying to do with this legislation. And hopefully, with all your input, we're going to be able to bring this back to Albany. But it's something to think about. Good paying manufacturing jobs are your base, and a lot of spin-offs come from that. So wanted to just thank you all again for coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Any other comments from the panel thus far?
No, Mark said it all.
Great.
Well put.
Okay.
From Batavia.
Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you
Did I
for
get the
inviting
last
me.
name right?
It's Bishoping, but it was close enough.
Close enough. Thank you.
Yeah,
All right.
You did far better than others do. So.
Okay.
I come with a unique perspective because in my previous job, I was district superintendent at Wayne Finger Lakes BOCES. Before that, superintendent in Livonia. And so I just have a couple of things to add because most everybody here has gone through a litany of the positives that are going on. And that's really one of the things I wanted to suggest is that we really should, and your legislation helps to celebrate the trajectory that we are on right now. When I started at Wayne Finger Lakes BOCES, we had roughly 930 students in our career and tech programs. I think Justin just shared with you that they're up to 1,100 right now. Most of those are in fields that are necessary. When I started there were 13 students, I think, Jim, in our advanced manufacturing program. Jim Van Kauenberg's been there for the full ride. I think right now, Justin could probably confirm that there's close to 70 students in the advanced manufacturing program. So I think it's important while we're talking about what we need, we also talk about this is a big ship to turn, in that the Regents Action Plan from years ago said we need to have more students going to college. And so that's really what schools did. They promoted college. And now, just in the last 10 years, we've said we need students in the skilled trades. So we're moving in that direction. I think you heard about all those successes like Finger Lakes works with their hands, P-TECH, all those things, those are the last 10 years. And so with more and more of those pieces in place, I think you'll see that this will continue to grow and grow in the future. I think you'll see more and more happening. But that certainly with your support in legislation. The second piece that I wanted to share is really what gets recognized gets done. And so what we see with Business First, with U.S. News and World Report, is the focus when they look at that, how many AP courses are taken, how many AP courses are passed, how many students go on to college. Those are big measures in what is considered as the best schools in the state, in the country, in the area. And so until there are other measures that recognize that that a school district putting a student into Optimax at 18 years of age with a healthy career option is just as valuable as the student going on to a four-year college. When that's recognized, I think we'll see as much or more growth in that. So again, thank you for having this panel. Thank you for inviting us, and certainly I'll answer any questions you might have.
I want to close before we leave.
Yes.
Good points.
Are there any questions from the panel?
Go Blue Devils. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Mark Cassini, the Chief Administrative Officer for American Rock Salt.
The hour is late, so I won't repeat what has already been said, but just to give you a little bit about American Rock Salt and a little background. We are the largest salt mine in the United States. We are the second largest salt mine in North America and one of the largest salt mines in the world. We have over 400 employees. We have another couple hundred contract employees. We move several million tons of road salt. We're the single largest distributor of road salt. We compete with Morton, Cauberghe, which I'm sure you're familiar with those, Compass Minerals, and others. We are one of the largest employers in Livingston County. And what's been touched on already is fantastic, and again, I don't want to repeat it. And we have needs at American Rock Salt for electricians, mechanics, welders, hydraulic equipment folks, and we work to find those individuals with experience, but we then train them in addition to the training they have in their disciplines, because the mining industry is so unique. So we go another step beyond that. But what I do want to talk to you about, and I mentioned this to Mr. Dobberton, the Assistant Superintendent at BOCES 2, we have several subsidiaries, one of which is Snowflake Transportation, which I oversee. It's a trucking company. We also contract with hundreds of different truckers throughout the year. I mean, we have a massive trucking operation. We deliver well over 100,000 truckloads of road salt during the season. So we have a very large need for truckers. And just so you know, we pay very close attention to the rates that we pay truckers and benchmark against the industry. We also pay attention to trends. And one of the trends that I will tell you right now that scares me is the shortage of truckers in the United States. By far, trucking moves more goods than any other mode of transportation in the U.S. And we're finding a significant shortage of truckers and a difficult time recruiting experienced truckers. Right now, according to the ATA, there are over 61,000 jobs that are open in the U.S. for trucking, and they predict by 2028 over 160,000 truckers will be needed. What that means simply is that products that need to be moved won't be moved. We won't be able to find enough people to fill those positions to move the product, and that has a direct effect on every producer in the United States. So in that discussion with Mr. Dobberton, we had a brief chat about the ability to train truckers, and we're going to have another talk about that, but maybe not so much in in the high school, but maybe in the CCE area that we could look at training those. But that is a critical need, and that's something I think that should be considered. And that's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Mark.
Mark.
Mr.
Any
Rapp,
questions?
perspectives? Any questions?
I've been down in the mine, though. It's a good operation.
It's a very, if you don't know, we're about a quarter-mile underground. It is one of the most amazing feats of engineering that you could imagine. We actually blow rooms, we call them. They're 90 square feet by 90 square feet. We leave a pillar, we blow a room. And the salt, which is a vein that runs throughout the Northeast, it's called the Appalachian Salt Basin. The salt is then crushed underground to the size that you see that goes into the spinners on the trucks in the various municipalities. And it's sent either to, right from underground, up a skip to the base where it's stored outside, to rail cars where it goes all over the Northeast and into the Midwest, or into trucks directly to local or regional deliveries. And it's all done simultaneously. It's an amazing, amazing operation. If you want some time, we'll give you a tour. Right now it's a little busy, but.
Yes. Mark, the one thing I want to, when I had my other hat on as the Jefferson County Board of Legislatures, we have had dealings with your business, trying to negotiate better prices back in the day. And at one time, it was not enough salt being produced. And I can't remember the reason why that. I'm going back 15 years probably.
Well, we'll give you, there's no industry secret, so I mean, everybody knows this, but right now there are some issues going on with other mines and their ability to produce. In fact, it's such a large issue that we're finding that foreign companies are coming in and dumping on the up the Hudson and along the coast on the ocean because the mines that are struggling can't produce the amount of road salt that's needed for customer demand, and it becomes very, very difficult to try to meet those demands all across, as I said, the Northeast and Midwest, and it can be a big challenge at times. I will tell you that I find it interesting, some of the companies that we do business with that, you know, in the state of New York, countries like Egypt, which quite frankly, I think violates the governor's executive order on human rights, but that's a discussion for another day.
For how many years of supply do you have down there?
We just acquired some more mineral rights. It's over 100.
Okay.
100 years, wow.
Ryan?
I'll be dead by then. I'm pretty sure.
So in the truck, oh, I'm sorry. So in the trucking industry, what's the number one reason why you can't get truckers? Do you feel, why are we not keeping truckers?
At one point, we thought it was pay, but pay has really risen in the industry. We think that just not enough people are going into that industry, and there's a shortage. It's just plain and simple. The pay rates have increased. There is training involved. It takes a lot of time. This is not, I mean, everybody thinks you just get in a truck and drive it. It's not that simple. There is extensive training involved with truck drivers. And right now, I think the average age is about 47. I think that's what the ATA lists, the average age of our truckers. So they're going to age out pretty quick, and we're going to be in a lot of trouble. So that's just, again, something to keep in mind. I think that's important that we focus on that particular area because we're going to be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, CDL licensing is a problem right now.
Right.
It's hard. It's hard to.
Thank you.
Steve. All right. Thanks, Mark.
Thank
Don't
you.
some of the BOCES campuses have truck driving schools and training?
We do, at Genesee Valley, which extends into Monroe County and Erie County. So it's a training program that has just blown up. So now we're going to be looking for instructors. But you hit it right on that it's a specialty, and it does take a while for people to be trained. But it's a program that has been taken right off.
It's an adult program.
Adult program, yeah.
You have to be 18.
Yes.
Well, our campus in John, I don't know if yours does, but we offer a Class B license to our students.
Yes.
As well, and they can get long as they meet the requirements, they can, if they start it before they graduate, they can get it for free.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Great, okay. Our next invited speaker, Dr. Robert Nye, the president of the Finger Lakes Community College. Doctor, thank you for your patience. We appreciate you being here today.
Well, almost everything's been said, but thank you for allowing me to be here, and I'm happy to be here. I will highlight a few things that haven't been said or just to highlight. And first, I'd like to highlight what my colleague said from GCC, Dr. Schiefen, about the credit hours for the programs, and it shouldn't be limited to the way she described it, or that it's only for students that don't go off to get a job. And that's very important for a lot of reasons. MCC, for instance, has their Ladders Up program, and what we need is a full spectrum of being able to approach getting people into our manufacturing and our industrial area types of jobs. And it's not just from the high school. It's from folks after they got out of high school, because you have yields of students that are coming out, students that spend a year doing things, students that go on. We talked about the penal code type of individuals that are coming out there. These credits are very important, but we need to work closely with SUNY to be able to make sure they align so they can get credit in various areas. And I would like to offer to you something very important. It's not just the high school students who are getting the college credits, it's the non-credit workforce, and be able to get short courses in that are 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 months long that we can't get funding for. And I'd offer to and ask you, if you want to drastically increase the ability to put people in the workforce, then help us get funding through SUNY for the non-credit type of activities that go on. We can make a huge difference, all of us, through BOCES, through the community colleges, if we could get the non-credit type of funding that you have going on, that we have for regular other types of courses like our concurrent enrollment programs. We can also do this through programs that have been out there. The Ladders Up, GCC has these programs in terms of providing the students the opportunity to get this type of training on our campuses and on the high school campuses in particular, just like we do concurrent enrollment right now, to give that for-credit type of opportunities for students. So not just for English. In any of our high schools, it could be for a welding course or a manufacturing course. We have great partners that are here from Optimax and GW List that we work for, that we already have for-credit programs, 6 months long. You walk out of there, you have 12 to 15 credits. MCC does the same, GCC does the same. First point, again, really is, can we get the same type of funding for non-credit activities that we do for the credit activities? The second point I'd like to offer to you, once I get back to my notes, I apologize. Several of my colleagues, our colleagues here, mentioned today the problems of bringing 17 to 18-year-olds or 16, 17, 18-year-olds into the workforce. And I'm going to read you a quote from one of our partners about how they feel, and they just came back from that same meeting with Commissioner Reardon from DOL. And the quote is, "We need clarification of the DOL regulations on minors in the workplace. A copy of the regulations," I don't need that. "The restriction seems to be outdated and would benefit from being rewritten to reflect modern manufacturing. Many employers interpret the restrictions as saying if it has power, it's off limit to minors," quote unquote. That makes it difficult to get the students in so that these companies here can bring the students in. Even though the DOL regulations state if you're in an apprenticeship program or you're in a BOCES program or a CTE program, that doesn't count. Something is discombobulated there, and we need work to improve the language so that the employers can bring folks in. And then finally, I want to go back to incentives. That's been said a lot, and it's been talked about how we celebrate students going to the four-year schools. The high schools get far greater credit for having their students go off to four-year schools than they do to any community college or any job. And the only way you're going to change that is through incentives. And the best way to do that is through budgets. And so if you give credit in terms of funding to schools that send students off as graduates or put people into the jobs, similar to what you talked about South Carolina, then you'll get a change of behavior. because that will get communicated to the parents in a way that they can actually make something happen. Everything else has been said thus far. I wanted to put those 3 highlights out there for you. But I'd also ask you to do one other thing. If you want to see some of the great partnership work that goes on between the folks that are here, go visit one of 2 things. The Glow Works with Their Hands, or the ThingWorks Works with Their Hands, where you have about 2,000 students between the 2 of us that you go see things. And I ask you that for a reason, so you can see how good it is. Go visit a P-TECH program and what that's doing in terms of the students if you haven't done it. It really makes a difference to how we're partnering between industry, the BOCES, and the community college. It's great. But the reason I ask you to go to one of those, especially the Finger Lakes or the Glow Works with Your Hands, is for one word. It's called yield. There were about 2,000 students that went to those. But the following year, how many of them are 2 years later or 3 years later, how many of those students are going off into the industries we want them to if they don't want to go to college? And that goes back to the incentive of what's the incentive to really get folks interested in this. And that's why I'd ask you to go to one of those events to see it, so then you can see how it could be incentivized. All right, thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. I am very proud to be partnered with many of the people here and willing to work with you in any way we can to make our communities better. Thank you.
Dr. Knight, thank you. Any questions from the panel? We appreciate it, Doctor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Melissa Smith, Training Manager, CW List.
No, okay.
No? Okay, Dave Phillips.
Good evening. I'm Dave Phillips, trainer at GW Lisk. GW Lisk is a manufacturing company. We make valves, solenoids, some sensors, mainly for the aerospace industry, and also heavy diesel automotive. We're an advanced manufacturer. We have a lot of skilled people at our company, and so my duties there is about a little over 10 years ago, we partnered with Finger Lakes Community College, and we developed one of those 6-month programs that Dr. Nye spoke about. That's been my job, is to teach and deliver that program. But over the years, we've learned a few lessons. And I should add, one of my other, when I take that hat off, I'm chair of Finger Lakes Advanced Manufacturing Enterprise, or FAME. So as we sat around here, and everybody, we're really speaking to the, we're preaching to the choir here. There's so many FAME members here, Berry Plastics, Optimax, Finger Lakes Community College, MCC, and we partner with the tech centers, the BOCES centers, and many school districts in our area. And so a question was asked of Jim earlier, how do you network? Well, part of that is FAME, is that we have the opportunity to get together and talk and start to listen to each other and learn, so we build these relationships. But I wanted to speak a little bit about the youth apprenticeship, right? So first thing is, I really can't tell you how excited most of the FAME member companies are about this, because some of the things we've learned over the years, we really focus on pipeline, hiring people, training people. That's what we try to do. And one of the things we're learning is it's really difficult to get that bridge between industry and high school. And we realize that's our next pipeline. Granted, there is transfer workers, there's incumbent workers, but there's not many unemployed people right now. So where is our pipeline coming from? It's the young people. So we're really looking forward to it. We've signed up. We are one of the companies who is willing to bring young people in as part of that. The youth apprenticeship there's going to be there's a shadow opportunity, and then there's also a paid opportunity. So we've signed up along with other companies, and we're really looking forward to it. So as we go forward, though, I'm going to say I see a few hurdles that I think we continually see. One of them is, and I'll go back to, as Dr. Nye said, the workman's comp, that whole thing. And quite honestly, it doesn't matter whose opinion we're looking at, okay? We have a workman's comp insurance company who needs to hear from the workman's comp board, period. We've had meeting after meeting. The problem is, who's going to enforce the law? who's going to enforce the law regarding workman's comp? That's the person that our insurance company needs to hear from, so I can hire an under 18 person. One of the other things that I see is recently I had an opportunity to work with one of our local schools on their advisory board. They're reviewing all of their career tech education, and this is at a local school district. And one of the things they're running into is really getting students aware of what's out there, right? So as you go forward with this, I think one of the other main components is how do we promote it? How do we give them? One of their hurdles is they have so much curriculum they need to teach, it's mandatory, that where do they get the flexibility to have maybe a career awareness class? You know, they do the lunch and learns, or what they call career cafes, but those are all volunteer during lunchtime. I've been to them before where I've had a dozen students to talk to, and I've also been to them when there was one. So they're volunteer. But if they had a regular curriculum they could offer, that would be the opportunity where they could have students in, have employers. You know, I can only speak for the FAME companies, but as I look around the room, we spend a lot of time in schools. If somebody calls up, we're there. If somebody calls and says, we'd like to take a plant tour, it's open. You heard Optimax's doors are open, our doors are open. But I think it's a hurdle that the schools maybe don't have the time or the funding. The other thing I heard was, you know, the fact of get some funding. You know, our program, I'll be honest with you, our company loses money on it every year. But the idea is we're training people to become machinists to come into our company. We're willing to take a loss every year so that we can have the opportunity to hire people, because the real benefit there is a long-term employee. The other one I heard is the credentialing of the related instruction. New York State has been very rigid over the years on what related instruction would be, and there's a lot of certificates out there delivered by companies. You know, you mentioned the heating and air conditioning, but there's a lot of organizations out there offering quality related instruction that if that was, you know, if that was available for these people, or more flexible. I know the colleges right now are working on related instruction between the three local ones, right? Because to date, for machinist is the one apprentice I know of, all the related instruction had to come to MCC. Well, we're about 45 minutes away. So if I've got somebody that's working a job and they have to come up here for a 3-hour class, you're talking about an awful long day. If they could come to MCC or FLCC, which is 15 minutes from our plant, that would be very helpful. I know they're working on it, but the more you can encourage it, I think that would be appreciated on all levels, especially the apprentices. So I think that's about all I wanted to, because I think everybody's covered an awful lot of ground for you as far as where our passion is, right? And the fact that we want people. So that's my small piece on it.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions from the panel? We appreciate you being here tonight.
Thanks, Dave.
Mary Benazak, Coordinator of School Counseling at Victor High School. Not sure if I got that right. I apologize. I did. Okay.
He's fixing that. I just want to again mention that I'm sort of home because I graduated from Rush Henrietta and attended Monroe Community College. Now I'm sort of dating myself when I tell you where. I don't know if anybody remembers where Monroe Community College was when I went to Monroe Community College. It was, I don't remember the street, but it was in the city, and it was an old, either a high school. It was, you're right. And yeah, and the library, this room is bigger than what the library was. And so, and my sister and my brother still live in Rush and Henrietta, and so it's good to be back, finishing up the sixth one here in Rochester. So,
was that the
are
late 40s or early 50s?
Thanks, Dave.
Mary, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity tonight to meet with you. My name is Mary Banaszak. I'm a school counselor at Victor High School in Ontario County. I'm also K-12 coordinator of counseling in our district. And we are fortunate to have counselors at the elementary levels now, as well as the intermediate, junior high, and high school. I'm also the New York State School Counselor Association Region 8 Governor, so I represent 8 counties in New York State, the needs of school counselors across the state through Genesee, Livingston, Monroe, Ontario, Orleans, Seneca, Wayne, and Yates counties. And this is my first year as Region 8 Governor, so I'm learning. It's my 30th year at Victor. I was a school counselor at the junior high and have been at the high school. I've also been the Committee on Special Ed chairperson. And before coming to Victor, I had 8 years in the Buffalo area as a special educator. So I've seen a lot. I've seen the pendulum swing. But I also am married to a Xerox manufacturing employee and have 2 sons who have graduated and gone on to college and are now working and giving back to our communities. I see, you know, I heard Dave talk about schools, and I want to give that perspective of what schools are doing these days. Our school counselors, while the New York State School Counselor Association and the American School Counselor Association recommend caseloads of 250 students or less, most districts, most school counselors have many more students on their caseload. The state has mandated a comprehensive school counseling program to be online and published in every school district as of this year, with curriculum for classroom lessons in every area of competency. A new job for school counselors who have never taught before, to go into classrooms and provide instruction, which is extremely valuable, and we're seeing it already in Victor. Students' language is transferring from the primary to the intermediate school, understanding how their behaviors and social emotional regulation impacts them in school. However, now we have further mandates to provide mental health supports. Our mental health needs are growing significantly. In Victor, last year, we had 7 mental health referrals to hospitals in the first 10 weeks of school. This year, we had 32 in the high school. In addition to that, we know that the state is asking for social emotional learning outcome mandates. They are also mandating, as of September 2020, Aaron's Law to provide children with awareness of predators. And so while things keep being added to the school counselors' plates, one of which is career and technical, career and college readiness, right? So I've been really proud to participate in the FAME organization over the past 7 years through Monroe Community College evening programs where they've talked with school counselors in school districts. I've been thrilled to work with Wayne Finger Lakes Technical and Career Center and the staff there and the counselor there who comes out to our school. As a matter of fact, she's coming out on Monday to speak with our 10th graders about all the wonderful opportunities at our tech center. We're trying to socialize the change from calling it BOCES to calling it the Wayne Finger Lakes Technical and Career Center. We are very proud to have our Victor campus of the Finger Lakes Community College so close by, and working with Sam Samantha and his program where he has hosted our students on his campus, as well as going out to MCC to the Advanced Manufacturing Center there, to show students what manufacturing looks like. It's not the pictures in the textbook of the Industrial Revolution, smokestacks. So we're trying to get the word out. Victor is fortunate to have the Project Lead the Way program, concurrent enrollment through RIT, the Rochester Institute of Technology, to provide students with pre-engineering classes that prepare them for engineering programs. My son was one who benefited from that. But we really need that middle group of students. So we're looking for those students who have completed Algebra 2 successfully, but are reluctant at this time of year while their classmates have already, we're writing letters of recommendation for our 89 seniors, each counselor, writing 89 letters to four-year colleges. We have gone down our list and found we have 5, 7, 10 students who haven't done anything yet, despite our annual guidance review meetings with them. So that's where we call them in and we're talking to them, and we're having FLCC instant decision days and MCC instant decision days where they'll come in and help the students do their college application and talk to them about their programs. But those are the students whose parents maybe did not attend college, do not know what's out there, are a little nervous about coming onto a high school campus, much less a college campus. And so we take them for field trips out to the two campuses. We have an internship coordinator who, along with our Project Lead the Way and Tech Ed teachers, have taken our students to GW List and hopefully to Optimix soon to see what's out there. But it's really incumbent upon the schools to bring the students that awareness. And it's one of the many things that we're charged with doing. And it's easy to say, well, that's not mandated. We don't have to do that. That's one thing we can take off our plate this year. But it's not okay with me. If we have 15, 20 students who don't know where they're going, last time I took them to FLCC and MCC, on the bus ride home, all 15 to 20 could say, that HVAC program at MCC looked fabulous. I'd like to do that. I really enjoyed the optics program. I really want to do this. I'd like this instead. And to know that we open their eyes to something they didn't know existed, we take them to Finger Lakes Works with their hands, but it doesn't become real until senior year, and they need to think about where they're going next. So to me, I think it would be wonderful if you would give school districts an incentive to have a K-12 career and tech, school, business, community liaison who could coordinate and mandate the types of things we're trying to do on our own without supports or incentives. We want to do a good job for our kids. We want our kids to be successful. We want them to be employable. It's very disconcerting when employability profiles are not part of our high school grading system in the the rankings of local high schools. We're working hard, and we want to do what's best for kids. And anything you can do to help promote that is really welcomed. I would say as far as the roadblocks go, transportation is a huge issue. Many of the students I talked about that I took to FLCC and MCC don't have their driver's license, don't have a car for their parents to teach them how to drive, and their parents are working 2 jobs and don't have the time to teach them. So any program you create, if there is an opportunity to earn a driver's license as part of it, might be really helpful. Another thing our internship coordinator is very concerned about is she can't get our kids into the wonderful employers that are within the Finger Lakes region because of their age. So I've heard it echoed here multiple times tonight that age is a factor with getting them into these facilities to see what types of jobs they could do. The other thing is the ESSA state reporting and CTE profiles our schools have to report out on our career and tech programs that our students are involved in. We need to become CTE certified in more areas in our school districts to provide it, whether it's the program coming to our campus or us developing new programs that are CTE certifiable. Right now, the Tech Center is our only method for CTE ratings and rankings. So I thank you for your time, and I thank you for thinking about our kids and working together with us and the FAME organization for collaborating with schools and businesses and colleges, because we can't do it alone. We really need each other. So thank you.
Thank you, Mary, for your testimony. Any questions from the panel? Great. And I think our last invited speaker is Austin from the Labor's Union Local 435. Is Austin here? She would like to, certainly, most certainly. If there's anyone else who would like to speak, please feel free to come up following this presentation.
I won't be long because everybody's hitting just about everything. That I do have just a couple of concerns that when we move forward here, and I didn't hear it at all tonight, safety. Safety. Wimoco does an awesome job giving us the 10-hour OSHA course. MCC on the advisory board. Troy, what can we do to help with our students get into your program? I always said, well, let's go outside on a 20-mile-an-hour wind on a scissors lift with an application, take it all the way up and let them fill it out to see how comfortable they are. This is an important thing. We touched on it with the workman's comp. We were fortunate to do an internship a couple years ago with Bosse's. Worked out very well. He's actually in the trade right now. It was awesome. Had to jump through a couple of hoops to get that insurance taken care of. So the safety was the one issue. The other one that I like the word incentive. I like to work with that. I guess maybe, and this might not be the specific group to this, but if we're going to incentivize industrial development agencies across the state, what could we do to encourage an apprenticeship program? I sit on the board and I hear often, and we do incentivize housing. So where is the industrial development there? We're going to require 2-4 full-time employees. I get that, custodians and maintenance. Well, Troy, you have the construction here, and then we are going to incentivize this program. Well, what could we do to the contractors? Not a punishment, but a more increased incentive to address the poverty initiative. Work with our schools, get these students involved early on, just to see, give them a taste of it. Our IDA here in Monroe County is very active. I'm sure you all know it's a very successful system. It's working, ladders up, it's growing, it's all there. So I just wanted to throw that out. If we could look at, if we are going to use taxpayer money on some of these projects locally, what can we do to have some of these developers or contractors work with the apprentice programs? Maybe in the high school, let's look at this 10-hour OSHA as we do introduce if somebody wants to get involved. You know, I can remember being in high school and some of the shock videos that we saw. Well, let's give people an idea of what construction and the skilled trades is all about. I do hear often, well, he or she is not college material. Well, the skilled trades is a place, a resource, but at the same time, we are also looking for those accelerated math students and science students. I personally went back to MCC's HVAC program at 42 years old, only recognizing that the technology coming down the pipe here, what we've been doing and what we've been training in our facilities isn't keeping up with technology. It's forever changing. So I do encourage anybody that our students, even when they want to take it to the next level, use the MCC program. But I like everything I'm hearing tonight. I just hope that when we do incentivize an apprenticeship program, it's on an even playing field. I know that when we talked internship on the HVAC advisory board, we did have some local contractors that were looking for free labor. Now, my contractors on a prevailing rate job are tied to not be able to do this. So why should we allow it to be done in the private sector as well? So that's one concern. The other item I want to bring up, and it goes back to Jim's original first comment about high schools and getting the students prepared. Here you have an MCC, they love to see that, the labs, they love to hear the HVAC is a successful career. They get in, and one of the professors spoke with me and said, Troy, we do 2 hours of lecture, and the other 2 hours we go into the lab. And it's disheartening to know that we can't identify a screwdriver, a nut driver, a crescent wrench, a pipe wrench, or any of the other basic tools. And this is where I can only reiterate again, it's sad to hear somebody paying money for a class that right off the bat, the professor is spending 2 to 3 classes, 6 hours of the basic identification of hand tools. And that's going to have to start, as we did in the high school, and encouraging early on, even if junior high, of just the basic hand tools. And Glow Event, our coordinator made bracelets, and it's awesome to see these kids take something that they made home with them, and they'll have that forever. And they'll fall back on that, and it's exciting. Anybody available tomorrow, the Bricklayers Union Hall will have all the teachers and counselors in town. Last year we did it at our hall. We had the virtual welder. Really neat stuff. The technology is there to start early and plant the seed early, and it's not that expensive to make minor investments. Even if Monroe County was to take something like a virtual welder or BOCES and just say, you got it for 6 weeks, you get it for 6 weeks, you get it. Let everybody get a feel of it, and we'll all share that cost, and I think that's a huge way of starting looking at as we try to keep costs down. But I apologize for my phone going off. I have an emergency, but I appreciate you giving me the time, and thank you for everything that you guys
Thanks,
do.
Troy.
Thank you very much. Are there any other speakers? Yes.
Hi, I'm Ross McCauley. I've had the pleasure of retiring twice. Once after 36 years at Xerox, where I was a trainee manager when I left there, and also about 3 months ago from MCC, where I was involved with workforce development. And for the last 35 years, I've been involved with apprenticeships. And I actually served 20 years on the New York State Apprenticeship Council when I was with Xerox. What I'd like to talk about is a couple points that I don't want that's really been covered already, and that's we need to get the parents involved. They're the decision makers. You know, it's great that the students go out to Optimex and see all the great stuff. They come to MCC and they see the great labs. But the parents don't know what's there. I don't know how to do it. They said if we could find out a way, they'd make a fortune. But we got to get the parents there. And the other message that we got to get out is it's not either or. It's not become a skilled tradesperson or go to college. You're going to do both. If you're going into a machining program and you come to MCC, you're going to end up with 8 college credits, 8 college courses. I know MCC is working, and I'm here representing myself, not MCC tonight. MCC is working on a way to have it so when the student graduates from their program, not only at the end of 4 years, not only do they get their journeyman's papers, but they also get a 1-year certificate from MCC or LCC or GCC showing that they actually do have college credit. And from there, they can then go on to get their associate if they want to. Everybody pays, as you hear, everybody pays for schooling. They can easily go on to get their bachelor's and further. At Xerox, I started at Xerox when I was 18 years old. They paid for my bachelor's and 2 master's degrees. It can be done. It's just that we have to have parents aware of that. It's not important. The importance is not that my son went to 4 years college, has all this debt and no job. The importance is my son, my daughter have a career where they can grow, where they can raise a family, have a good life. So we want better for our kids than we had, but we also can't lose fact that there are opportunities here which do not involve getting their 4-year degree. You can do it other methods. There's a non-traditional method. And the other thing I think we need to approach too is somebody brought up the pipeline. No, Dave brought up the pipeline issue. We need to start looking at other populations. If we're strictly, you know, I look at the room here and we're fairly homogeneous in this room. We need to look at other populations. We need to look at minorities. We need to look at the unrepresented, underrepresented, unemployed. Because that's where the other risk is going to come from. The statistics right now say there's more jobs than there are workers. You can't grow workers overnight, especially as the population is declining. So we need to look at who's out there that's not working and put up programs. So if you look at your legislation, and I just learned about this yesterday, so I apologize if I'm not too familiar with the legislation, but I really believe in apprenticeship. It's a proven model. I think if we can really get the message out there, 30 years ago, everybody had apprenticeship programs, Xerox, Carrier Company, Kodak. We had great apprenticeship programs. Times changed, recession came through, we lost all that. I'm glad to see that we're starting to get it back. We're getting pre-apprenticeship back. When I was working here in workforce development over the last couple of years, I had parents coming in with their kids saying, they got to learn a trade. And so something we would not have seen 10 years ago. We would have seen them come to the advisory council, to the admissions office, looking for what can I do for as a 2-4 5-year program. So we're starting to see the shift, and I think that's where the legislation really needs to go into. The shift is happening. We're seeing the aging out of old people like me, and the need for people to come in, young people, people of color, minorities coming in to fill that pipeline, because otherwise we're not going to be as successful as we really need to be here in this New York State. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think, are there any other speakers? Okay, at this point, if it's okay with our colleagues, we're going to forego the closing comments, and we're going to turn the floor over to our co-chairman, Ken Blankenbush, to just wrap this up.
Again, Mike and I had, I think, the easy job. We would just show up, and everything would be set up, and people would be called, and I think, well, I don't think, I know, we have the best staff of any conference in Albany. We have great support from them. Behind the scenes, we were getting emails and texts every day. Mike and I don't know how many we've got, I mean, who have worked with us for these 6 meetings. Our media people who come up from Albany, who followed us through all of these 6 adventures. So Mike and I really appreciated all the help that our local representatives who made phone calls in every district that we've been to. Like I said, we would just show up and we're here, and we've learned a lot. And every place that we've gone so far, there's something new that has come out. So it's, you know, a lot of, again, I think I mentioned it, a lot of people have asked us over the time, you know, why wouldn't you just hold one meeting in Albany? Well, that doesn't work, because every region has a different point of view on things, and our staff in Albany now is going to be looking at all of the media and producing a report. So they'll be working from now on trying to put all that together. And again, I want to thank, you know, our staff who have put this whole thing together tonight. When this task force first came out, I was very interested in it because it relates to my family. I have a daughter that is a pharmacist, and I have a son who would rather be climbing poles and going underground. Go figure. And as a matter of fact, he works for O'Connor Electric here and lives in Scottsville. And today, this year, I believe he's going to be making as much money or more money than my pharmacist daughter. And the only thing I regret, and I'm sure he does too, is that he didn't get involved with this early. He didn't get involved in it when he was in high school or preschool, because we knew all along that he was better at taking things apart and putting things together. I own an insurance agency in town, and people always ask, in Watertown, people always ask me, why wouldn't your son want to take over my insurance business? He'd rather be underground. But because of my family situation, and what I now know is that we should be helping these kids that are like my son, who really could have been making this kind of money and career when he first got out of school, instead of now when he's 40. And so anyway, I want to thank everybody for coming. We're going to work hard to put this plan together. Once we put the plan together, everybody who wants to contact us, you're going to be able to get a copy of it. The legislation that's being proposed will probably all be changed because of what we have been hearing. So, you could always amend legislation, and that's what hopefully we'll probably do, making it a better better legislation, helping get it as a bipartisan. We've got to sell the other side of the aisle to push with us. We can't do it alone. We're not going to try to do it alone because we need bipartisan support on this. And every one of our colleagues has the same story in their assembly district. So again, thank you for coming. I want to thank my fellow members who helped us set this up today and made some phone calls. And I think it was a very successful tour that we had. Now we got to put it together, and now we got to make it work. So thank you very much.